the USPA Safety Day, like push this year, the Stay Alive Practice 5. Hey, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I had it in front of me. It says something about doing reverse turns.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what that means.
Great. Okay. So reversing turns basically means I'm in a turn currently, and this turn has a problem in terms of my direction of motion, a traffic issue, or I suddenly decide I'm heading downwind, and if I don't bang it around, I'm going to drift too far downwind and not get it home. So it's a dynamic reversal of direction when you're currently in a turn. Um,
Okay.
right. And there's different angles on how to teach this. I wish USPA had given more a little more clarification on this, but because you can get line twist in a turn reversal really easily if you don't understand the principles. If I'm currently in a turn that is coordinated, where all my lines are loaded up, right? I didn't just sling the turn. I flow into that turn where the line tension builds up in terms of the centrifugal forces. In order to reverse that turn without losing line tension and therefore the structural integrity of the parachute system, aka line twists, I need to either ease off of that turn, wait for the line load to increase again, and then reverse. It's one of
Mhm.
my options, but it's a slower reversal, right? It's going to occupy more space in the sky. And if I don't have that, because I just opened up, I started to turn back, to go away from the wind, from the jump run, and there's somebody there. Well, let's look at the physics of it. Is it less work to reverse your turn away from them or to tighten up the turn that you currently have? In most cases, it's number two. In most cases, you want to go, sort of tighten up, but you may not have the room. You might end up with your body slapping into their parachute. So turn reversal has its time and place. If you don't have the space and time to release the turn smoothly, where you start to feel the lift create tension in your lines, it's indicated by weight increase, to then reverse, you have to create that line tension while you're in the turn as if you're flaring out of a low turn. That's going to put the parachute further back behind you, and it's going to make the wing loading heavier so that you can reverse very aggressively. You nose it up and then you turn. If I was flying an airplane, instead of this and then that, it would be like I'm in the turn, I give back pressure as I rotate over. Does that make sense? I'm giving the line tension deliberately to create the maneuvering capability in the reversal. It allows that canopy to go with me instead of separately from me. Yeah. And it's something
So
you can practice.
is that the same idea as a low turn recovery, but up high?
It kind of is. It's just that now once you begin the recovery process,
You
you're
gotta
not going to just
keep going.
continue. Now you're going to go back into a turn in the other direction, but it does
Okay.
require a bite, right? A tail bite, right? So you're pushing those brakes with some. It's not gentle. And if you push those brakes sharply, even just a little bit, in most cases, that's enough to keep the canopy at the end of the lines as you reverse your direction. And I mean, the principle of creating line tension to create maneuvering applies to a lot of different things. This is just one test bed. But it'll allow you to have a greater freedom to what you can do with your canopy without the fear you're going to give yourself line twists. Right. I mean, certainly, even just going boom, 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 right? Getting that thing swinging will be sort of similar, but that's with you hanging underneath the wing. This is, I've built up the energy. I'm in a turn developing, speed and drag, right? Lift and drag from the speed. And now I'm going to change that direction. So there's a lot of motion of where you are relative to the parachute, as opposed to this more simple version of it of oscillating the yaw axis with, alternating toggle input. I think it's important to do both, but I'm not going to give, somebody with 20 jumps the assignment to go oscillate themselves into a tip collapse. That's too much. It's going to scare them. They're going to quit the sport. So yeah, you just inch your way into these things. Not because you don't need it, because everybody needs all these things all the time. Even a first jump student actually needs this. You're just hoping you put them into a simple enough scenario that they're going to get through it before their luck bucket runs out, so to speak. You try to give them, a good spot. You try to give them, the proper instruction and the reminding that if they're smooth in what they do, yeah, they're not likely to have any problems at all. Big slow parachute, it helps. But as you get, you downsize to under 200 square foot canopies, you've got a lot more responsibility, including the digging yourself out of low turns and all the different versions of that, where the turn isn't low, but you've got a little extra airspeed. Now you've got this greater distance that you're going to travel on that particular landing. What are you going to do if you're running out of runway? How are you going to blend a flare and turn process that ends well, right? It's one thing to avoid impact on something. It's another to actually have that whole process come to a nice, clean completion where you're standing on your feet at the end. And it can be done. All parachutes can do that. We're the problem. The suspended load with a lack of imagination is the problem. So we have to keep on trying these things little by little. And if it's not perfect the first time you try your turn reversal, don't beat yourself up about it. You add that grace of forgiveness to just, all right, let's try this again, shaking the Etch-a-Sketch. Okay, here we go. Again, starting into the turn, brakes, turn reverse. Even like I'm in a turn and I'm going to force myself out of it to level flight. The first bunch of times people do that, it always oscillates around, or they hit the brakes too much on the low side and they go deeper into the turn. Like, what's that about? That's not what I was trying to do. Well, you got to balance as you're striking that flare in the turn. You have to balance your hands based on what you see and feel in the moment. Which is why I think that it's so important to just get that canopy turning and then nose it up and nose it down as you keep it turning. Nose it up, nose it down. How much do you need on each hand as you do that to feel that? Keeping your head level with the horizon as you do it, looking with your head turned into the turn a little bit. And just keep going around in a circle, big wide circle. More lift, less lift. Right? I get heavy, I get light. One of the most valuable drills that we can do, because the recovery arc is up to you.
One of the things I really like to use in those, especially reverse turns, is really paying attention to that harness and leading with my harness as I come over. That's going to help keep that line tension as you come around the corner and really make it much smoother and more powerful. If you're leading with your hips and keeping your hips following with you, actually leading you slightly.
Yep.
I enjoy flying that way.
Yep, absolutely. The body's part of the equation. We start teaching about the hands, and then you get into the full body effect of all this stuff that makes it work better. And experimenting as well with where you're sitting in the harness on the pitch axis. As you're reversing, are you doing the reverse from way back here, or are you doing it shoving forward, leaning into it? Big difference. If you try a few where you're leaning back against a reserve container, you won't like it. But that yuck feeling that you can't quite put your finger on, where you feel like you're wobbling around because you're leaning back, that's valuable information that you're not going to get as much without actually doing it. If I just tell you that that's the way it is, sure, you can avoid certain traps, but I want you to feel these things. I want you to turn wrong, at high altitude to know why right is right, so to speak. Wedging yourself forward in between those main lift webs where you're connected, right? You shove your shoulders into that a little bit and push out somewhat. You are connected to the wing and you can sense it. You can feel it across your chest strap and on the main lift webs. You can feel what's going on. And as you lean into those turns, you're actually using your shoulders as well as part of your harness input. Yeah. It ain't just pulling toggles, is it? I'm Brian Germain, and thank you for joining.